Hello, everyone. How are we all doing today? I mean, we are back once more again. I remember the last time I did see everyone was when we had our, what will I call it, our conference day. And I mean, I know it's been a while since then, but I miss everyone, and I'm happy to be here once more. And this is a blissful Saturday around where I am located right now. It's kind of chilly, I would say. The weather is kind of chilly today, and I mean, I'm having amazing guys on stage today, and I can't wait for you all to meet them. I can't wait for the kind of topics we are about to discuss today. The interesting thing is Gen AI has been a trending topic, right, in the Microsoft community space and all other IT spaces we currently have. And it was our discussion to be like, why don't we talk about this with the community? Why don't we put this out there and get the community involved? And that's why we are here today. So, I mean, I'm going to be discussing with interesting people today, and I would like to start bringing them on stage. Um, of course, forgive me if I didn't introduce myself. My name is none other than Promise Uche Nwachukwu. I'm an MVP for Microsoft Azure category. And yes, today I'm also going to be speaking with fellow MVPs in the house. And the first person or the first MVP that I'm going to be bringing on stage is none other than Imo Etuk. Hello, Imo. How are you doing today?
Hi, Promise. I'm doing
Ah,
great, and you? How about you?
I'm doing great as well. Imo, it's been a while. I actually saw you on stage. I mean, I guess because we've had so many activities throughout the year,
Yes,
and I remember
yes.
the last conference we had was sometime in October, and that has got us so busy, and then we had to rest and all of that. But I mean, it's nice seeing you here more. How have you
Nice
been, by the
seeing
way?
you too. We are doing great, my brother. So, how is everything on your end?
Yeah, everything has been awesome. Everything has been awesome. I mean, I missed you guys though.
Same here, yes.
I missed you guys though. All right. It's time for us to welcome our other speaker for today. He's also an MVP for Microsoft in the Microsoft Azure category, and he will be joining us here on stage to also speak about what generative AI. So give it up to none other than Raphael Gamomo. Hello, Raphael.
Thank you very much, Promise.
How
Thank
are
you,
you
Imo.
doing
Good morning.
today?
Good
Good
morning, Raphael. Welcome.
morning. How are you doing today?
Very fine, thank you. Doing
And
good.
how's the weather like over at
Not
your
not bad.
end?
It's a sunny weather, and it's great to be with you guys once more
Yes,
Uh,
actually, I've missed these discussion sessions we usually
as well
have,
here. The
and
fire that,
I feel like
and I'm excited to I'm excited to be with you guys once more.
Same
awesome,
here.
awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, Raphael. So, I mean, today we will be talking about one very, very interesting topic. And I know this is something we've all talked about and we've been looking forward to discussing. But I mean, this thing has been trending. It's been really been trending. Generative AI. You have lots of people talking about generative AI. And initially, I was like, what is this generative AI? What is it really all about? Right? So, in a few minutes, I would just like Imo to just give us to give us like would I call it a brief overview. But yes, before Imo goes ahead, what we plan to cover in this session are general generative AI and how this technology itself came to landscape, right? We also intend to talk about large language models, and let me say, luckily enough, we have MVP Imo and MVP Raphael, who will be giving us some capabilities of generative AI and practical use cases of large language models. Now, in order to just give a brief rundown and some summary or an overall picture of what generative AI is, I'd like to call on Imo. Imo, please, can you give us an overview? What do you think this generative AI is all about? Because I know people are really wanting to have an idea what it's all about, and maybe in their mind they've been asking, I don't understand what's going on and all of that. But please just give us a run through. What is generative AI really all about?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for that question. Yes, I know a lot of people have even personally asked me, what is generative AI? So I'm seeing a lot of confusion out there. People feel maybe when they heard the word generative AI, it's very big, or it's something that they don't know. Meanwhile, the stuff is right beside them, is right within in their own day-to-day activities as they go about their work. So generative AI is meaning is a generative artificial intelligence. Like we have the likes of ChatGPT in particular. So generative AI is built on that language model that has the ability to generate text. Text could be code, images, and others. So it's and it does not even make it very hard for people. One thing about generative AI is that it helps to democratize AI. It makes AI available to everyone, irrespective of your field of studies. Let's say you don't need to be a Java developer in order to use generative AI. You don't need to be a cloud engineer. You don't need to be a DevOps engineer to use generative AI. It is there, right there, just the prompt as little as text that you key into your browser, into the field of maybe ChatGPT or Azure OpenAI or Bing Chat as well. It will generate the text that you need. It will give you the query to your prompt, and those prompts helps you to solve one or two problems in your work. Generative AI in particular. I'm a living a kind of I'm a beneficiary of generative AI. The way it has changed the pattern and the way I work is really really amazing. So it's making that which seem impossible to be possible. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, Imo. Thank you very much, Imo. I mean, I feel like that was a very will I say, a very intuitive breakdown on what generative AI is all about. Now, guys, you heard MVP Imo talk about this. Don't look at it as something too big. First of all, look at it as AI and then bring in the generative part. So we are still all talking about AI here, but this time around, we are looking at how do we focus on generative AI, talking about more models on the models and anyway, just be patient because this session or this discussion is meant to give you some insight on what generative AI is all about. Now, I'll be moving to our next question for the day, which is how did we get to generative AI? And I'll be calling on Raphael to give us an insight into this. How did we get to generative AI? Hello, Raphael.
Thank you very much, Promise.
Awesome.
This question took me back a little bit. Okay, I remember in those days when we were trying to when this hype came all about. I remember then we started hearing about statistical approach to AI. They were telling us, "Oh, go and learn statistics. You must know this. You must know." It's all started that way. So it started with statistics, statistical approach to everything. I remember then in school that small statistics add to everything. They were trying to like force us to learn statistics. So just because they were telling us that is the future, then it got to a point where if you remember, if you remember a few years back, let's say 10 years back, the owner of Coursera, Andrew Ng, came up with this neural network, and it became a buzz thing there. Oh, neural networks, this modern virtual assistant, and all that and all that. So you can see how it grew from statistics, neural network, and today we have generative AI. So if you add all this to what Imo has said, you can see that there's been a pattern, and it has taken us to where we are today. Okay, so yeah, I'm sure that you all know what you, even if you feel that you this topic is novel to you, but you might, if you've been using ChatGPT, you know that you have at least had a taste of what we are talking about. So I throw it back to Promise. I hope that I answered your question. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much for this, Raphael. Thank you very much for this. And I mean, I think we've all been considering all of this, and there are very key things we've been mentioning, right? Generative AI. And for you to know more about generative AI, first we try to give you a concept on how did we get here, right? Now, one of the other things we would like to also talk about is how do large models work, right? How do large models work? And I remember while we were basically preparing for this session, and I was talking to Imo and Raph, and I was like, now, in generative AI, one of the very, very important things that people do, speak about is large language models. Large language models are, I would call them the very key or very the base which builds this whole concept of generative AI. Now, there are three things you need to consider when talking about how large language models work. The first one is what? Tokenization, right? And tokenization is nothing but just the models converting words to numbers which they understand, right? And the second one is what? Predicting output tokens, right? Remember here that we are still talking about AI. And one of the very beautiful thing with AI is that AI kind of searches its model, looks what it has in between, and is able to generate output to you, right? So it kind of, from the database, from the knowledge, from how it's been trained, it's able to predict what answer you are looking towards. You may probably a question you're asking or something like that. Now, the third basic one, right, that gives an understanding on how large language models work is what? Selection process, which is actually what? The probability distribution. Now, the interesting thing about this is that it also still makes use of, tokens. But the idea is that in selection process, it deals with probability. It looks at what is the probability of this token occurring, or what is the probability of this token happening in the next input or in the next output. So generative AI forms, or let me say large language models forms the base at which we talk about generative AI. But then to understand how large language models work, you need to understand basic concepts like tokenization, predicting output tokens, and selection process called the probability distribution. Now, I already made mention of tokenization. Tokenization is, let's say, I'm giving a sentence to the model, right? And I say, oh, Promise goes to school, right? Now, Promise goes to school is the input which you give the model, but the model doesn't see it that way, right? It first of all tries to break down each word into what we call numbers, and those numbers are what they call token. So with that, right, it now has all of the words Promise goes to school in like token numbers, right? Now, when it breaks down these words into token numbers, it then says, okay, what is the probability or what is the output likely to be from the question you've probably asked it? And that's where it comes about predicting output tokens, which is the second step. It then tries to predict what the output of those tokens would be and takes it on to the next level or onto the next iteration, right? And then that's when we now start talking about what? The selection process, right? So it's based on the iteration, how much iteration it has to go through, right? It picks those outputs for you, and then it has those words in tokens. It now transfers that or changes that into an output, like a character from which you can understand, and then gives you back that output. So I think that is one beautiful way which you can use to have a basic understanding on how large language works. So I mean, this was just a brief explanation to give you some idea about this. But of course, I'm going to be bringing on back Imo and Raphael to the stage because I also want to get a further insight into what generative AI is all about. And to buttress this point, right, we'll be talking about how can startups um, now, in Nigeria now, one of the beautiful things we've been experiencing is the fact that we have quite a number of startups which are coming up, right? We have quite a number of them which are coming up. And now we want to look at how can our startup leverage on large language models. And I'll be calling on Imo to give us a brief insight into this. Hello, Imo. Please, can
Yes,
you
promise.
give us a brief
So,
insight into this? How can our startups leverage on large language models?
okay, so I thank you very much, promise. So, startup
Yes.
in Nigeria and anywhere can leverage large language models. Like for instance, large language model like ChatGPT or GPT 3.5 or 4. You see that it can help startup in terms of idea generation. In this case, I will look at the educational sector. Let's say we have an ABC startup in the educational sector. Of course, the mission of every institution now, as far as education is concerned, is to make learning available for everyone globally on a global scale. So how are you able, assuming you are located in Nigeria, of course you want your services, which is in this case in education sector, to span across the globe. So what a large language model can do for you as a startup in education sector is it can help you to in terms of idea generation and also getting those things, those learning innovation to people, to students, even in at the comfort of their homes. They can be anywhere, and with the generative AI, you are able to leverage what is called idea generation and many other things to be able to maybe assess the students, and students are able to also contact you with their assignment and all those things. So without you having to worry about moving from one place to another, you are making this learning available to students at their doorstep, wherever they are. And in terms of research work as well, a large language model can also help, because if you are writing thesis now, like if you are writing your research, you are doing any, it can serve as a research assistant to you. You can use it to research for your coursework and be able to come up with something that is good. Then when we talk of the startup in the software development sector, maybe if you are having a startup that are coming up whose services is to develop software, so I can tell you that within the twinkle of an eye, you are able to develop your software, because generative AI has the capability of giving you the code that you need. It's just that you have to, because AI might not give you the accurate thing that you need, but at least it will give you like 75% of the ideas. So it is now left for you to leverage this content to your own for your own good, and how you want them to serve your customers and help your startup drive business growth and innovation to people. So startup can leverage LLM in several ways. They can use it in terms of education, software development, marketing, and sales. It helps you to also generate sales idea. Once you develop a product, of course, you need to get those products to the market. So you can also leverage generative AI in this case, because it will give you the idea of, in terms of blog posts, marketing content, and everything that you need to get your startup in out there in the market. So there are a lot of benefits. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I mean, that's an interesting one, more. But I mean, further speaking into this, right? One of the things I was actually thinking about when you mentioned softwares, right? In a practical sense to me, right? In terms of software, you don't really have to actually think much, because take a look at instances where you have I know now that there are some softwares which we currently have now that once you speak to it, right? Once you
Yeah.
speak to it, they are able to identify your voice, right? So let's say, okay, take for instance your iPhone. Let's say your iPhone, or let me say your Google Bard, or some of these speech recognition programs, where you can just say, hey Siri, what is the weather like in my current location, or what is the weather like in Lagos, Nigeria. You understand? These are some practical terms, right, that you can make use of. You can also make use of Azure Open AI and Bing chats, and say ask questions, right? You can also make use of Azure Open AI and Bing chat and ask questions, prompt questions like, when you search something on the Bing chat, and you say, hey, can you compose, or can you tell me about the history of Nigeria in this year, right? Because the Bing chart is a trained model, it already has all of this knowledge within itself. The data is already present there, and it can give you history, right, on what is currently happening, right? It can give you deep insights onto what is currently happening. Okay, recently, I discovered that I've not been making use of Bing chat the way I should, right? And I began to do things, right? Rather than me disturbing myself, what is the current weather situation? I just type on Bing chat, what is the current weather situation, right? Is there traffic in a particular destination I want to go to? Or what is the temperature like where I'm currently at? You understand? I mean, these are tools that you can use to actually make work process easy for you. Okay, take for instance now, I'm a DevOps guy, right? And I want to write some code. and maybe I've been cracking my head. How do I implement things like this, right? That's why you have things like the big chat. I mean, you just need to ask those questions, and it gives you ideas on how you can implement things. And looking at this, these are practical ways which startups can leverage these large language models, to generate ideas or solutions which they can profile to people in their community. So you can imagine, just by using these large language models, it enhances your productivity level. I mean, imagine you chat in a problem to big chat, or maybe to using Azure Open AI, and then it gives you an idea on how to solve that, and then you can further enhance, you can further enhance that particular solution with the ideas you have, plus what the AI has helped you with. So, I mean, this is really, really a lot. And I feel like a lot of people are not tapping into the advantages and the benefits that Azure Open AI and Bing Chat provides us with. But anyway, like I said, we will understand more as we go on in this discussion. All right, the next question I want to ask, right, is something that I have been, you know, is a core concept of what large language models are. All right, and I'll be calling Raphael, our MVP, Raphael, to talk about this. What's true about large language models?
Okay, thank you very much, Promise. I hope that you've been very, very much attentive. I think Promise has, in one way or the other, given to you even the question that he's asking me. So, number one, you should take note that language model is what things like ChatGPT, okay, OpenAI GPT runs on. Okay, GPT was not built with Python, was not built with Node.js that it was built using large language model. That's the first thing I'd like you to know. Then secondly, you should also know that it is non-deterministic. What does that mean? Every time you put a piece of information, different thing comes out. It was built to give you that kind of result. And why is this? Because the truth about it is that it's the language model is actually learning from the data that you throw into it. So the more you throw data at it, the more if you generate another result, it will learn from the previous result that you've sent to it. Hope that I've answered your question. Thank you very much.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Thank you very much, Raphael. And I mean, in making progress on this, one of the interesting things we love to do is how can we carry the community along, right? So, hello viewers, one of the things we want to do in order to enlighten you more is we want to give you some background concepts on how generative AI is. I know we may not be able to come. What would I? We may not be able to, like, go through all the, what's the word, all the basic concepts. But one interesting thing you can do is that you can get some lovely insights on generative AI using this link. I'm going to be sharing a link to everyone here, and I mean, I know this will really, really, really go a long way for everyone here. So, in case you've been wondering, generative AI, what is it really, really, really about? I'd like you to go to this Wikipedia page and get some insights, right? Get some insights on generative AI. Trust me, guys, you don't want to miss out on this. I keep saying this. You don't want to miss out on this. It's best you tap into this now, start learning about what these concepts are. That way, you don't feel left out in your place of work or when you hear people talking about these things. And trust me, it's not that difficult. If you can spend some time to go through some of these materials that we are sharing with you, also if you can spend some time to go through this video. Remember, this video is always available to you and you can always go through it over and over again. Think about these things we are saying. There is a very large opportunity right now on generative AI, right? There is a very, very large opportunity on this. And what we are doing as a community is to try to get your attention and point your attention to what is really, really going on, right? So that we don't want you lagging behind, right? We don't want you lagging behind at all. All right. We are going to continue the session, right? And one of the things we really want to speak about in this session is um, what are the different types of large language models. I'm sure a lot of you may have been wondering, large language models, what are these guys really, really speaking about? Now, one thing you need to understand, right, regarding large language models is the fact that large language models are broken down into various types. One of the various types which they are broken down into is what? Audio and speech recognition. Now, I believe all of you probably know what we mean by audio and speech recognition. And I don't think it's something new to you. But what we are trying to do now is to make you understand the models behind things like those. Now, earlier when MVP Imo was speaking, we made mention of the fact where you can people who provide solutions to companies such as startups. Some of the things they do these days, right, is they build things that can understand your speech. So let's say you want to communicate to your car or you want to communicate to your door and you just make a comment and your door understands that. Now, what is the idea behind that, or what is actually the technology behind that? It's actually large language models. So many of you are using this technology now, but you don't know that that is actually the brain or the technology behind some of these things you are making use of. So the very, very first type of large language models is what we call audio and speech recognition. I mean, right now, some of you know that you could actually send text messages by just speaking to your phone, right? You could your phone can actually compose messages, right? Because why? It understands your voice and it understands what you're saying, right? So this is one major type of large language models, right? Another one type of large language models is what? Image generation. So I don't know if we all know about this, but do you know that you can actually generate images with your models? I mean, I don't know if this is something MVP Imo or MVP Raphael is going to be doing for us today, but the truth is that you can actually generate, talk about it, logos. While we were preparing for this session, I was having a chat with MVP Imo, and he did some quick demo to me on how he was able to generate the logo of something just by typing in some sentence to his model, and he was able to generate a logo. Now just imagine, right now it's a big business to have logos generated for you for your business. Yes, Prince, I saw Prince Maxwell statement. You're right on that. Dali. Yes. So I mean, you know how much if you go to a designer right now and tell the designer that, please, can you help me generate a logo for me because I want to use this for my business and I want to use this for this. Now you will know how much you would have to spend, right, to be able to have that logo done for you. Now, just imagine making use of large language models free of charge for now, at least for now, to be able to generate logos. I mean, isn't that awesome? I mean, that is awesome because the interesting thing is that it's not just logos you could generate based on various concepts, based on various inputs which you give your large language models, you can develop different kinds of images, right? Another type of large language model is what? The text generation. Yes, text generation is an interesting type of large language models. And of course, so many of you have heard of Chat GPT, right? And today, some of you just type, hey, GPT, I want you to be able to, generate an essay for me, right? Or I want you to generate the Terraform block of code that I will use to deploy a virtual machine. And sorry, and in the split of a second, you have your code generated to you, right? Sorry about that. That is what we call text generation. And these are things already in place. So the thing is, most of us are actually making use of these things without knowing that this is what we are actually making use of. So I spoke about three different types of large language models. The first one I spoke about was audio and speech recognition. The second one I spoke about was what? Image generation. And the third one I spoke about was what? Text generation. Now, these are all some things which we already make use of but don't know. But now I'm trying to bring this to you that guys, there's no need to be afraid when you hear the word generative AI or large language models. No, there's no need about that. What I want you to do is that I want you to sit down, take some time, and go through some of these materials, and you will be amazed of the amazing things you can do with what? Large language models. All right, we'll be proceeding now on this session. And one of the things we actually want to take a look at right now is it's an interesting thing, right? Because for you to understand large language models, you need to talk about some of the foundations, right? You need to be able to actually speak about some of the foundations. Now, I'll be calling on MVP Imo to tell us what is the difference between foundational models and what? Large language models. Hello, MVP Imo.
Premise, thank
Yes,
you. So,
awesome.
yes, allow me to share my screen and
Yes,
bring that up to life.
please go ahead, MVP Imo.
So, large language model and foundational models are two distinct things. First of all, foundation model was coined by Stanford researchers. They see it as those models that are unsupervised. Nobody supervised them because other models actually depend on it. Other like large language models depends on FMs, foundational models. So I will use the diagram here to sketch how the structure of foundational model looks. You have the foundational model like this, and you have the pre-trained, the one that, let's say, this foundational model, which other ones are depending on foundation model. So you have something like a GPT 3.5 non-advanced. In the last in the just concluded Microsoft Ignite, Microsoft announced Chat GP announced GPT-4 and GPT-4 Turbo. So making kind of improving the GPT-3. So you can say that GPT-4 is a foundation model, which ChatGPT is depend on to give you what he has. So now for every query that you run, every prompt that you run on your ChatGPT, for instance, ChatGPT is dependent on the foundational models. Like DAL-E that we use to generate and edit images is also a foundation models. So how they are distinct is that to build a version of ChatGPT, a model called maybe then it was GPT 3.5 is non-legacy. It's non-legacy because we have GPT-4 and GPT-4 Turbo that was recently announced at the Microsoft Reignite program. So now ChatGPT is depending on GPT 3.5 function. So this means that like OpenAI uses a chat specific data to create a version of chat GPT-3, and this foundation models are usually very large, and they are very deep neural network trained on billions of parameters. It is a very large one when it comes to where ChatGPT or because these are depending on foundation models. We have other ones which are like us in the chart. Maybe you can tell us the example of foundation model that you know. So, but we have the like of Chat GPT 3.5, Chat GPT-4, GPT-4 Turbo, and all. The distinction is that foundation models are trained using unsupervised learning or self-learning. It does not depend on others to work. But other ones like the chat and every other generative AI depends on foundation models to function. So I will put more light on that.
Awesome, awesome,
Before
awesome, awesome.
I go up, before I go up, I just shared a link to a full course where you can further explore generative AI for beginners. Feel free to
Awesome,
look into that. Thank
awesome, 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 awesome. Thank you very much for that, Imo. Thank you very much for that, Imo. I mean, I feel like it's been pretty much enlightening. And for those of you who are wondering what Imo, MVP Imo just explained to us, what he tried to explain to us was what is the difference between foundational models and what large language models. All right, we'll be continuing on this session, and what we want to talk about now is, I feel, is something that um, gives you also a more in-depth understanding on what generative AI is and what large language models are. So we'll be coming to this question right now, and I'll be calling on MVP Raphael to give us an insight into this. So the question, here's how the question goes: what is the difference, right? What is the difference between open source versus proprietary models? MVP
Thank
Raphael.
you very much. Thank you very much, Promise. Okay, so
Also,
the explanation to this is not different from what you all already know. You know that open source is an open source software. Okay, but I'd like to break it down a little bit because right now we're not talking about general open source software anymore. We're looking at AI. So I'm going to look at about there are a lot of aspects we can talk about to explain this. So I'm going to look at the very first one. You want to look at the difference first of all. Let's talk about as your access to pre-trained models. So now for open source, some open source AI models are pre-trained and publicly available. So open source, they are publicly available, okay? And it allows developers to use them as the starting point for various softwares that they want to build. But when you look at proprietary with regards to pre-trained models, those proprietary AI models, they come with specific databases and other packages that are restricted. So the companies that worked on these ones, they don't want them. They don't want you to just use them just like that. Okay, so that's why they are proprietary. Okay, but if you're going to be allowed to use them out of the box for whatever you're doing, it is open source. Now let me talk about another aspect of it: data privacy and ownership. Okay, so when we look at data privacy and ownership with regards to AI, let's talk about open source. So when you're using an open source model, users have control over the data that they use for training and to ensure privacy. However, if they fine-tune the models with proprietary data, they need to consider implications of combining these things. Okay, that's for open source. Then for the second one, when we want to say, when we want to look at proprietary in terms of data privacy and ownership, the use of proprietary models may involve you sending data to third-party servers, okay, for processing whatever thing that you are doing. So I've talked about access to pre-trained model. I've talked about data privacy and ownership. With regards to the question you asked me, let me look at the last one before we go off. So integration with commercial solution. Okay, with regards to AI, when you're integrating to commercial solution, let's look at open source. So open source AI models can often integrate with commercial solutions without any additional costs. Okay, so when it's open source, you can integrate without you being charged money. Okay, when it's proprietary, as you know, you need to pay money. So I hope that I've answered your question. Thank you very much. I promise.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that explanation, MVP Raphael. Thank you very much for that. All right. We'll be moving on to our next question for the day. And this actually got me thinking. You know why this got me thinking? Because a lot of the times I feel like we actually hear of these things, but maybe sometimes I would say probably because we are not sure exactly what it is. And then we are like, oh, do you mean this is what we've been talking about all this while? Now, one of the beautiful things, right, which I want to really, really shed some light on right now is a very, very interesting concept, right? I mean, I feel like you can't be talking about LLMs, generative AI, without having an understanding about this, right? That's why I said it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept because people generally already make use of these things, right? But then they don't see it that way. Now, I want to discuss something called embedding. What is embedding? What is image generation? And then text and code generation. To be able to explain this to you, right, I'm going to share my screen. Because, like I said, a lot of you actually make use of this without knowing you make use of this. And that's why I'm bringing this on here. And the first thing I want to actually make you all see is the fact that when you talk about large language models, a lot of the time you actually speak of right, embedding. A lot of the time you speak of image generation, and a lot of the time you speak of text and code generation. Now, some of you are wondering, right, what really, really is embedding all about? So this is it. If you remember in my first explanation, when I was trying to explain to you about how large language models see the words or the inputs which you generate. Now, take for instance, you give a text input as Microsoft, right? But when you give this text input, how the language models actually understand them is what numbers. So these large language models, they convert the text input into what numbers. This process is what you call what embedding, right? The process where your models convert your text input into numbers which it understands is what is called embedding. Now, another thing called image generation. Now, we earlier spoke about the fact where you could actually generate images with your large language models, right? Now, image generation is all about when you use trained models, right? That you can just say a painting of a flying dog, right? You know, this when somebody tells you flying dog, and you're like, can a dog actually fly? But I mean, this is your model actually describing that concept to you in a pictorial form. So those of you that will be wondering, is it possible for a dog to actually fly? Well, you can see here, you can see your model here actually doing it for you, giving you a pictorial representation of what it is or what a flying dog looks like. Now, the third one, which many of us are used to, is the part which is called the text and the code generation. Now, this part is usually common to what you have among most of these models we have out there, like Bing Chat. So, some of the time, people can say a text of, say, write a letter to my teacher about me missing a class today, right? And before you know, your Bing chat is able to, your Bing chat is able to do something like that for you. It gives you a brief description about that letter which you are writing. Now, one of the interesting things we want to do today is we want to show you a little demo on how you can actually make use of this Gen AI to generate these images. And to be able to do that for us today is none other than our able MVP himself, MVP Imor. Hello, Imor.
Yes, promise.
Yes, please,
Thank
can
you
you
for.
help us give us a sample on how we can generate these images making use of
Okay.
Azure Open AI?
Yes, thank you very much. So, hi everyone. So, I have my open Azure portal open down, and I have my own open AI I've already have created, and it's called Test Model One. So, for you to access Azure OpenAI, you have to go to the Azure OpenAI Studio. That's where you do all your demonstration and everything you want to do. So I'm going there right away. I've already created my OpenAI because of time. I created that earlier before now. So I will still log into my account. Now let's get things clear. So when you hear OpenAI, Azure OpenAI is classified under generative AI as well. So and it's built in the GPT-4 foundation model. So it's not like it's new. So for us to within Azure AI, you have the playground. Within the playground, you have the chart, you have completions, you have DAL-E, you have a deployment, you have models, you have data files, you have quotas, and all that. We are going to start with chart. Now, for all the things we said, you can actually create deployment. To create a new deployment, select the model you want to do, select your model, see the FM, that's the foundation model we spoke about. Meaning Azure OpenAI is built on the FM, which is pre-trained in this. So I'm just going to choose which of the model do I want to use. GPT 3.5, two ball, and I can go for anyone. Then I will go for the GPT 3.5. Now I can say, okay, model version auto update to default. I can choose one. I will leave it at auto update. Now I'll give it a name. I can just say chat. Let me just put any name here because of the demo purpose. So advanced will give me option, the corresponding token that I need to send out per minute or per seconds, all those. So I'll create it. So you can use this chart for your
It's 1 o'clock.
chatbot. You can use it for anything you want to do. You can serve as a virtual assistant for your business and all that. You can put in your prompt. The prompt is that you can add your messages. You can do anything you want to do. Like for instance, now this is a chat section now that I have, and I also have assistant set up by the side. So let's say we want to start a chat. I can just say hi. Let's see what happens. If I say hi and send, you say prompt response that I will get. Hi, hello, how can I assist you today? I can say I want you to tell me the weather condition in Lagos, Nigeria. Weather condition in Lagos, Nigeria today. So this prompt now will chat. OpenAI has the rate to the ability to give you whatever you ask. As you can see, it says, sure, I can help you with that. As of today, the weather in Lagos, Nigeria is mostly cloudy with scattered thunderstorms. The temperature is expected to range between 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. That is 77 to 86 degree Fahrenheit. And humidity is around 75%. So there's nothing you cannot do with this chart. Anything you want to ask, you can ask. So without wasting much our time, let's go to completion. Then we have this here. You can have some summarization of whatever you do. You can summarize. Okay, summarize a key point from a financial standpoint for me. You can pick maybe you say, okay, summarize an issue resolution from a conversation that I have with people, so they can just do that. So that you can take this. Now you see it gives you a raw word that you can now further summarize. If I say, okay, generate a summarization for this, summarize this text for me, it will summarize it, and it will make it more presentable for you to use for your business or anything. Look at it, it will come, you see generating. I have taken over by, so now the key financial is that, okay, from the raw text above, you can see the summary. I won't have time to read through all those things, but then it gives you the summary that revenue increased by 7.5 billion or 16%. And if you look at it, from the start of report, we have revenue increased 7.5 billion or 16%. Commercial product and cloud services revenue increased 4.0. So all those things are being summarized. And from here, you can use this to make key decisions for your data. Another one is that, okay, maybe if you're working as an assistant to maybe a personal assistant to your MD, and your MD wants to embark on a trip, you can as well use this to generate a conversation and summarize it. And if you look at the summary here, it will give you all the itinerary for your MD or for your boss travel. So now moving down to the DAL-E, which is also another aspect what considering on how to generate image and all that. So we can just go to look at it. It has actually say, okay, the customer problem is that the customer is looking for a trip within a budget of $4,000 from San Francisco between August 2015 and September 11. So it summarizes everything and even choose the hotel name and all those things. So going to the DAL-E, now we are in the DAL-E environment. So it will give you a prompt. Just type in your prompt here, and it will generate an image. I can say, okay, generate an image of a flying bird, an image of a flying dog, anything, or a flying dog. Okay, in this case, so it will generate. So is this interesting to play around with Azure OpenAI? So it will generate.
And one of the beautiful things about this is just like you spoke about the various logos and interesting features which you can work with. You see them here. You can see the various images here are being generated for you, making use of the Azure OpenAI. Proceed.
Yes. And from here we have our image. You can copy the image. You can generate new image based on the initial prompt. You can regenerate another image based on that initial prompt. You can download your image. You can generate code for embedding into your web browser, into your application, into your software. This code now, when you are generating, when you are deploying it to the endpoint, you need the key. This key is not to be exposed publicly. You have to insert the key for you to be able to pick this endpoint. So this is how, and you can have the ability to select different language, either in Python or just in a format of your text. So it gives you the flexibility. Copy this code now, give it to your developer, let them insert it into the code, and then you have your image inserted. So that is how it is simple, how simple it is to do. You can actually delete your image at the end of the day if you do not want it again. So it's that simple. So I believe we get to see something. I'll have to hand over to our guy there, Mr. Raphael, to add one or two things.
Okay. Thank you very much, Imo. I'd like to say something. Okay. So when I finished my university, the very first company that I worked with was a games company. Now, let me tell you something. The biggest asset of a games company is their images. Okay. Images and coders. Okay. So now let me tell you something. In a month, a games company can spend so much on images. So with something like DALI, and what you've just seen, if I own a game studio, okay, if I own a game studio, I would not even care. Let me share my screen quickly. I want to show you. So let's assume that I'm into creation of cartoons. Okay, you can see that I've generated very funky cartoon characters. Okay, if I want to develop a game, I would definitely make my images using this. And also, I have someone that works for me. She's a designer. Okay. After I found out what Open AI can do, I fired her. Although I don't pay her too much in a month, I pay her just 25,000 naira. But everything that she does for me, I can use these things to do it. So I sent her a message yesterday that sorry, or not vexed. So sorry, don't be annoyed. I think that your services are no longer required. So what am I trying to say, guys? I think that this is an era where we all need to learn this. Okay, if it's true that AI is going to take over jobs, AI is not going to take over the skills of this. Okay, so let's hop into this. Let us learn as much as we can. Thank you very much.
Awesome,
Okay, yes,
awesome.
to also add to what Raphael said, Raphael, let me add to one or two things. To further explore, briefly, to further explore the Azure Open AI, if you go to the, here's my screen. Promise, just a minute. If you go to the models, you see that we have foundation models, a lot of them that are being built in. So whatever you are doing in this playground is dependent on the models at the back end. We also have the deployment that it should show you, okay, I picked Chat GPT 3.5 tuber. So it shows you everything. Then what is my own, the size that I picked, the deployment standard and the capacity. Capacity is measured in TPM. So this is how you can further explore it. Then the data file will come to the data file section. So that from me. Promise, over to you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, MVP Imo and MVP Raphael. I feel like this has really been an amazing session. Like, it's been an amazing session. So, guys, if you don't know how to generate images, if you don't know how to construct codes, please rush on to Azure Open AI. I mean, guys, don't dull on this. Don't dull on this, guys. This is this is it's a what would I call it? It's a gold mine. It's a gold mine that Azure is providing us with. And I feel like you need to be able to tap into these resources to have a full understanding of how things like this work, right? So today we've been able to discuss with you on, some of these concepts that give you a better understanding on what generative AI is all about. Guys, generative AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, guys. It is not going anywhere, guys. The earlier you begin to have some basic understanding of this and how to make use of it, is the better for you. Remember that AI is meant to aid the work you do. The people who are going to be the future of this industry we work in are people who need or who know how to make maximum use of generative AI and AI concepts on how to enhance their work. So, yes, they have all the skills, but they are making use of AI to ensure that they have basic understanding of these things. So, guys, I'm pleading to every one of you, take some time, go through the materials which we have shared so that you can learn one or two things. Now, before I go, I'd like to call on MVP Raphael to just give a short summary of what we've discussed today, just a brief summary, 1 or 2 minutes, and also MVP Imo will do the same, and then we'll wrap up for today. So over to you, MVP Raphael.
Thank you very much. Okay, so generative AI is being here. Okay, you've been playing with it, but you don't realize. You've been playing with it, but you don't realize. So if you've been using ChatGPT, if you've been playing with others, others types of being AI, I think that you are already used to it. Okay, so and all these things were built upon large language models. Okay, and like Promise rightly said, these things are meant to aid your work. Okay, they, like I told you earlier on, one of the for a game studio, they might not need to hire too many designers anymore, because they can generate all their images from they can generate all their images using Azure OpenAI. So you can be on the front of this crusade, okay, by starting today to learn those basic skills for your future. Okay, so yes, take advantage of all the links that have been posted. If there's a thing that you need to, you're confused about, even after the program, you can send me a message, or send email a message, or send Promise a message, and our community is there. Azure Community. Okay, get across to us on LinkedIn, and we will gladly reply you. Thank you very much, guys.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Raphael, MVP Raphael, for that. MVP Mo, any last words for us?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Raphael and Promise. Before I go on, I would like to share this material. So go there and build on it. Knowledge is a continuous process. It doesn't stop here. So go to this link, all the content you need to start building on Azure OpenAI and generative AI, you can find them here. Then going further, I was in the panel section in our last concluded Azure Community Day, and the topic was, will AI take away my job? Yes, AI will. No, AI will not take away your job. One of our panelists, one of the panelists then rightly said that AI wouldn't take away our jobs, but it will take away the jobs of those who refuse to learn AI. So it is time to learn AI. Start learning about the generative AI. Start building your models, training your models, and by so doing, you will not be left out. When the era, because we already the AI is here. It's not that AI is the future. It's already here, and it has started driving wave. It has started changing the mode of doing things, even in our workplaces, in our homes, in our house, in our lives in generally. So start building, and all will be well at the end of the day. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for this, MVP More. Thank you very much for this. So, like we all have heard, guys, generative AI is here to stay. And I would love to encourage each and every one of us to take some time and start learning about generative AI. And without further ado, if you are not part of our community, I would like to encourage you to go on to join our community. I'm going to be sharing our community pages link. I want you to go on here and follow us on LinkedIn. And of course, this will enable you to what's the word? It will enable you to have some idea about what we are doing in our community, and it will also enable you to get involved in the community as well. So I have shared the link here with you. This is the LinkedIn link for joining the community. So guys, please go click on that link, and then you can reach onto either of us, any of the MVPs in the house, or any of the community leaders. We are here to provide questions and provide insights to you. Also, if you know that you haven't joined our meetup group, please, we encourage you sign up to our meetup group. Whenever we want to send out messages regarding events like this we hold, one of the basic tools we make use of is Meetup. So please ensure that you are signed up to our Meetup group, and also just generally just get updated with all the things we are going to be doing for this particular community. At this time, I'll say yes, we have some nice resources we've shared with you on this chat. Please take some time, go through them. And we finally come to the end of the session for today. Of course, we are going to be bringing up more sessions, but for now, we want to say goodbye and thank you all for this awesome, wonderful session, for being here with us. We are grateful. We are happy. We are happy for the fact that you took out your time to listen to this session, and we want to encourage you. Like I said, go out there, build models on Azure OpenAI, and give us a feedback. If you're having any challenges, reach out to us, and we are here to provide answers to all of you. And with this, my humble self, promise, MVP Imo, MVP Raphael, we want to use the time to wish you a happy holidays. And guys, let's wish them a Merry Christmas in advance.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas in advance, guys. And
In
of course,
advance.
Happy New Year in advance.
In
We hope to
advance.
see you next year, because we have lots of interesting sessions for you. At this time, I would like to say thank you all. Bye bye,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Awesome.